Yeah, but not too much so.
51 days in the hospital. Over 2 liters of blood drained from his right chest. 51 pounds lost. From 188 to 137 pounds. His scapula shattered. The bullet lodged in his heart. Surgery, trauma, shock. These are just a few of the injuries my client has suffered. And for what? All this for name calling. Yes, that's right, for name calling. And for joining a fight in his defense. Soon Judge Judy will give you some jury instructions. She'll explain to you that we have the burden of proof in this case. We have to prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence. Or in other words, we have to prove to you that it is more likely than not that Officer Waldman's actions were unreasonable. That they were wanton or negligent. Wanton, the very definition of wanton is without motive. Negligence. Failing to act, breaching the duty of reasonable care. Consider the police department's own policy for the use of deadly force. Deadly force is not to be used unless it is used to prevent death or bodily injury. On December 7th, 1996, my client, Mr. Ramirez, was getting up off the ground. He wasn't threatening any injury to anyone. When he was shot in the back, shot in the right shoulder, subsequently sent to the hospital for 51 days, where he suffered all these intense injuries. Ladies and gentlemen, he's still not the same today. He's unable to go back and work. He's unable to relate to his son, Robert Jr., to shoot hoops in the backyard. He was a carpenter. He provided for his family. He's unable to go on and live the dream that his wife would have wanted him to live. Because of being shot in the back for name calling. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the story. He was out with his friends. He was having a good time. It was a Friday night. He had a few beers. He had some drinks. He was on his way home, and he got frustrated with a driver. So he followed this driver. He wanted to give him this piece of his mind. He called him a name. He called him an idiot. He was frustrated. He was giving him a piece of his mind. And then as he approached these officers, who we now know to be police officers, he didn't know it at the time, he was punched in the face. He responded. A struggle ensued. Eventually, he was knocked down to the ground. There was a knee put in his stomach. As he lay there, now the person on top of him, the man on top of him, who we now know to be Officer Levy, says, "We're police. We're police." What does my client do? Who would expect such behavior from police officers? He throws his hands down. He says, "Okay, show me some identification." As he prepares to get up off the ground, he's shot in the back. He got a bullet. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your job today to determine whether this is reasonable. Whether Officer Waldman acted reasonably. Now, you've heard a testimony from the officers today. You've heard their story. You've heard their alibi. Oh, he had a knife. He was threatening Officer Levy with a knife. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a knife found at the scene of the crime. But ladies and gentlemen, when that knife was examined, it had no blood, no fingerprints. The examination proved that it was not used by Mr. Ramirez that night. Officer Levy was checked into the hospital for a cut wound. For a cut wound, ladies and gentlemen, but were there stitches? No. Was there any kind of surgery performed? No. A little dry dressing. You put a Band-Aid on it. He was cut. He was in a fight. And where are the Where are the clothes? Where's the jacket that shows that he was stabbed? Of course, it can't be produced. And also, ladies and gentlemen, if you examine the officer's testimony a little bit more closely, you'll see that their testimony is not only inconsistent with Mr. Ramirez, with the consistent testimony that he tells, but it's inconsistent with itself. They're inconsistent with each other. It's also inconsistent with the police report. It's also inconsistent with objective circumstantial evidence found at the scene of the crime that night. The crime of shooting an innocent man in the back. One officer testifies that the knife, that he got out of the car, and as soon as he rounded the back of his car, and he actually rounded the front, but as soon as he rounded the back of his car with the knife, that he saw it. The other officer says, no, I didn't see it, and if he would have had one, I could have seen it. Ladies and gentlemen, their stories don't make sense. They're inconsistent. What we do know, ladies and gentlemen, is that my client was shot in the back, that he has suffered greatly. For what? For name calling. So you tell me, is that reasonable? You tell me. These officers, these are police officers. They're officers of the law. Their job is to protect citizens, such as my client. Not injure them, and certainly not shoot them in the back when they're defenseless and getting up off the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, you've heard a little bit about what my client has suffered. Unable to work, unable to do the work he loved. Over $7,000 in hospital bills, $9,000 in loss of wages, and the pain and suffering, the agony of trying to go on in his current condition. We ask for compensation today, but beyond compensation, we ask for justice. Justice for my client, Mr. Ramirez. Justice for these officers who acted unreasonably. Please check liable on your jury form.